Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a special online event today called Meeting the Marias, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and Miriam, sister of Moses, how women mystics reveal a radical path of transformation for your life and our world. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder, president, and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be embarking on this voyage into the sacred feminine with you today. I really see this at the heart of how we heal ourselves, heal our spiritual lineages, and ultimately heal our world, to really rebalance the currents of wisdom that we've inherited to include the feminine in a place of honor and respect and reverence. And it's particularly important for women. And I can think of no better teacher to help us reconnect with this current and open it into our modern lives than Mirabai. Mirabai Starr is an award-winning author of creative nonfiction and contemporary translations of sacred literature. She's been a teacher of many amazing programs at Shift. We just did a 7-week program with her that people had such profound experiences and feedback, and really doing this deep work of bridging our modern understanding with the ancient and bringing alive these currents of women mystics that hold such important teachings for our day. Mirabai has received critical acclaim for her translations of St. John of the Cross, Dark Night of the Soul, and Teresa of Avila's Interior Castle. And she has a new book called Wild Mercy, which is coming out from Sounds True. So just a delightful soul with a lot of wisdom to share. Warm welcome to you, Mirabai, to today's program.
Thank you, Stephen. I always enjoy these opportunities to be in dialogue with you.
Well, I want to let everyone know up front that we are going to have this hour with Mirabai and really get some juicy gems for you. And we're going to have a chance to go much deeper with an upcoming program called Wild Goddesses and Mystics of Mercy Soul Sanctuary. This is going to be a powerful journey into the sacred feminine and embodying it in your life. So we'll hear a little bit more about that towards the end of the hour. So Mirabai, let's start with a little bit of your backstory. So you were raised Jewish, right? And then here you are, becoming one of the foremost scholars around some of the feminine mystics that are more associated with the Christian tradition, even though they were ultimately Jewish back then. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your own spiritual journey and what brought you into seeing the centrality of these Marias for our current spiritual life.
Well, I was raised without any religion at all. My family, like so many American Jewish families, were culturally Jewish, but I didn't learn anything about the religion of Judaism from my family. It was only as a teenager when I studied with Reb Zalman, Dr. Shalomi, that I began to uncover some of the jewels in my ancestry, in my ancestral tradition. But I was raised in an interspiritual community, the Lama Foundation, where Ram Dass wrote Be Here Now, in northern New Mexico in the mountains, where I still live, not at the foundation, but close by. And so I was exposed to many different spiritual traditions from a very young age. And as I've often said, I thought that everybody was one of each, that all the wisdom traditions have these great, profound treasures that they offer to us, albeit encrusted with a lot of hierarchical, patriarchal accretions that we could do without. But there's some way in which I am drawn to these three, what I call las tres Marias, the three Marys, that has a lot to do with their universality and the fact that they were all rebels. They were all subversive. They all stood up and spoke truth to power and almost died for it, in every case. So I think that that's what speaks to me, is that they embolden me to stand up and speak truth during these dark and crazy times. So even though they're ancient wisdom beings, they have very contemporary medicine for us, not only for women, but for men also, who are longing to reclaim the feminine wisdom in their own lives and embody it. And
I think it's so important that you're pointing out that it is both for women and men, because when we inherit this kind of split in our spiritual systems, is that we're always going to be imbalanced and less than whole and less connected to the divine. So it's like the reintegration of the feminine is a portal for all of us to really open to the full spectrum. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, the way you described the Marys was interesting right there, just a little bit more provocative or edgy than a lot of people have inherited. We've kind of like gotten a softer, sweeter version, at least of Mother Mary. But let's talk a little bit about more how they were much bolder, more more individuated, if you will, women than we might have learned from our history books and from the Bible.
Yeah. Well, I think they've been kind of written out of the biblical literature and smeared out of the history of religion in general, and that's why it's so important for us to reclaim them, not only on a scholarly level, but in our bodies and our lives. By telling their stories, by musing on the qualities of their stories that directly connect to our own transformation, and I find that to be very exciting and very accessible. So, for instance, with Miriam, Miriam was the sister of Moses, the older sister. And when you really dig deep into Miriam, she was kind of an equal prophet. She was definitely considered to be a prophet in Judaism, but of equal status to Moses. What is a prophet? A prophet is a spokesperson for the divine. So the divine spoke through Miriam just as much as through Moses, but in a different way. Miriam was the one who led the Israelites through the parting of the Red Sea in the magical mythical story of the Exodus, the passage of the Israelites from slavery, from bondage in Egypt to freedom in the promised land. And they had to pass through the narrow place, Mitzrayim. And Miriam's the one who led them. And she led them with a group of women singing and dancing and playing the tambourine or the timbrel. And so there are all these beautiful images of Miriam and the women playing these musical instruments and dancing their way through the narrow places and opening the way for the Israelites to pass through. When they got to the other side and the Red Sea closed, drowning Pharaoh's army, Miriam and the women, their first task was to mourn those who died in order for them to be set free. And so there's such an embodied quality to Miriam's story. Wherever she went, a well sprang up with clear, fresh water. It's called Miriam's Well. And when she died, before they ever reached freedom, liberation, the well dried up. And Moses kind of lost his mooring when Miriam died. There's another part of Miriam's story has been very perplexing to men and also to white people. And that is, there was this time during the Exodus, during the passage, the 40 years in the desert in the Sinai, when Miriam questioned Moses, questioned his power and authority. And one of the things she did was she questioned his marriage to an Ethiopian woman. And it's been a source of confusion. Why? What was Miriam questioning? But Midrash, especially feminist wisdom, has determined that what Miriam may have been questioning was that Moses had taken on a second wife and was neglecting his first wife. And the punishment for Miriam daring to question Moses, actually she said to God, how come he gets to be called the prophet? Aaron and I are prophets as well. We too speak your word and carry your message to the people. And she was struck with leprosy, something like that. It's often translated as leprosy, but her skin turned from black to white. So the punishment for Miriam is that her beautiful black, rich skin was turned white, and she was exiled for 7 days outside of the camp for daring to question Moses. The woman speaking truth to power, to the masculine power. And the punishment was to be turned white. And
Hmm.
what's beautiful to me about that story is that the people halted in their progression. They stopped and they waited for the full 7 days until Miriam, who was exiled to the outside of the camp, could be returned, restored to her rightful place among the people who were utterly devoted to her. I don't know. There's so many layers of that story that fascinate me. I mean, I bow to Miriam for speaking up and questioning her brother, who represents many beautiful, wonderful things, Moses, but he also represents the masculine power paradigm. And Miriam was saying, "What about me?" And I think the "what about me" is what about the feminine? What about the body? What about embodiment? What about sexuality? What about the water? I mean, Miriam was probably deeply connected to the manna as well, which contained the nourishment for all the beings as they pass through this desert space.
Hmm. Well, thank you for bringing that alive. I'm not even as familiar with that whole story, and a couple things struck me. As one is the importance of the ecstatic feminine, the dancing, the singing as part of the parting of the waters, even if that's symbolic or literal. It's like that there's a way in which that the ecstatic feminine can move and open possibilities that by itself the masculine can't. And then I thought it was very interesting the way you pointed out that he lost his way without that, without the check and balance, the kind of like the masculine without the balance of the feminine then starts to get dysfunctional.
It's a perfect example. I mean, not only that, but and I won't linger on Miriam, but Miriam's my Jewish name, by the way. But I forgot to mention the most important thing. Many people would consider the most important thing about Miriam. We'll see, is that she's the one who accompanied the baby Moses down the Nile when his mother kept him safe as long as she could. Remember, Pharaoh had decreed that all the firstborn Jewish children, male children, should be killed. And so his mother, when he was born, all the midwives, first of all, the midwives completely defied that decree, and they all kept the babies safe and hid them. But when Moses could no longer be hidden, his mother wrapped him in a cradle and sent him down the Nile to safety. But she had Miriam, his older sister, we don't know how old she was, a little girl, maybe slightly older girl, accompany him all the way down the river to make sure that he was safe. And when he washed up as they planned for him to at the palace of the Pharaoh, they arranged it so that when the Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe, she would discover the baby, and knowing that she was a kind soul, would take him in. And so Miriam just popped up at that moment when the Pharaoh's daughter found the baby in the rushes, and she said, I know a woman who recently lost her son because the Pharaoh decreed that all the male children die, and she's filled with milk. And I could find her if you like, and you could hire her as a wet nurse to nurse this child. And Pharaoh's daughter said, "Great idea." So Miriam went and got her mother Yocheved, who did serve as Moses's paid wet nurse until he was weaned. And so Miriam was involved from the very beginning. Not only that, but she was the prophet who knew that her parents would conceive a child who would set the Israelites free. And there's a whole story about that. There's
Hmm.
stories upon stories here. I look forward to sharing them.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating. I mean, so I guess one thing so we can go into the deeper history, and there's an important reclamation of that history that has kind of gotten written out of the codes that we've inherited. But then how do you see that really impacting how we live a modern spiritual life?
Well, exactly. That's the key. I mean, the stories are juicy and they fill our cup in many ways. I find that stories are enlivening and nourishing. But how do they actually serve as activating forces for our own lives in terms of embodying our own prophetic wisdom, being willing to connect with that part of ourselves that knows that it's our turn to step up in some way. Miriam was a prophet. And what is a prophet? It's someone who hears that call to step up and be an agent of change, positive change in the world. And it ain't easy to be a prophet. All prophets, as I have often said, are reluctant prophets if they're authentic ones. Most of us are not going to be clamoring to figure out a way to be thrashed and ridiculed and reviled for the sake of speaking truth during these times when truth telling feels truly dangerous. And so we have this sisterhood, we have this circle of ancestors who rush in to surround us and embrace us and hold us up when we agree to be prophetic voices in this world. I think one of the obstacles we come up against, especially as women, is we look around us and we see all of these brave activists and we think that our prophetic truth has to look and sound like theirs does. But what we find from these deep wisdom teachings is that we each are imprinted in our souls with our own unique tasks in the healing of this world, in the mending of the broken web. And so our task may be very different from anybody else's. And so our challenge is to tune into what that is. And the Mary, all the other prophets are here to help us do that.
Beautiful. Well, I know we don't have time to go deep dive into each because you're going to be doing more of that in your upcoming program, Wild Goddesses and Mystics of Mercy. So we're very excited for that program. But let's turn our attention to Mother Mary now. It's the next historically in the sequence, and one obviously who's been very exalted in many ways, but also diminished in certain other ways. So let's talk about your perspective on Mother Mary.
Excuse me, Stephen. Could you start that over from the transition when Mirabai ended?
Sorry about that.
No worries. Beautifully said, Mirabai. That was it's so profound, and I know you're going to have a chance to go much deeper into Miriam in your upcoming Wild Goddesses and Mystics of Mercy Soul Sanctuary. But let's turn our attention now to Mother Mary, who's next in the sequence historically and has been exalted in some ways, but also created, sanitized, and diminished in certain other ways by the Christian tradition. So let's get your perspective on Mother Mary and what we can learn from her.
So Mother Mary indeed endured the deepest anguish that a mother can possibly experience, which is the death of her child. So Mother Mary, from the very beginning, as a young peasant girl, giving her yes, her hineni. Hineni in Hebrew means here I am. It's what a prophet says in any tradition, maybe not in Hebrew, but hineni, here I am. I am reluctant, but I say yes anyway, because what I want more than anything is to be an instrument of peace in this world. And that is the courage and power with which the young Mary stood up. And then she was the first one who introduced her son to the world as a being of great spiritual mastery by encouraging him to turn water into wine at the wedding, remember? And then she was by his side through his entire short-lived ministry, because of course he died at the age of 33. And Mary was there with him at the foot of the cross, along with the Apostle John and, of course, Mary Magdalene. And she witnessed the death of her child. And she stayed present, breathing through that anguish, and held him in her arms when he was gone. I mean, what power, what courage. Mary's the opposite of meek and mild. And I just vow to all of the beings, women and men, who are finally reclaiming the power and majesty of Mary from the meek and mild reputation that the church tried to slap upon her for all these years. So like Miriam, Mary in the Christian tradition is being reclaimed as the powerful prophetess and mother of the world that she is. I mean, all the apparitions of Mary around the world, but I'm thinking primarily of in Latin America, Our Lady of Guadalupe, Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe, is this powerful prophet of liberation and hope for oppressed people. She truly is the mother of the world and is finally being recognized and reclaimed as such.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for starting to illuminate that. And so how do you see claiming more of that by having a deeper relationship with Mother Mary? How can that really shift how we do things in our modern lives?
One of the ways that Mary really functions as a true source of strength and companionship and hope in my life is that whenever I'm navigating an emotionally fraught or painful situation, when I feel a real burden that I'm carrying on my heart, I offer it to Mary and ask her to carry it with me, because she, for me, and I think for so many of us, represents the true feminine that has room in her heart for all the brokenness of the world and can carry it all. So I lay my burdens at Mary's feet and ask her to help me. I mean, of course, the most powerful and potent and painful experience of all is the death of someone we love. And Mary experienced the death of her child. I experienced the death of my child. And that's what broke open my heart to Mary 15 years ago, was when I experienced the death of my daughter. Suddenly, Mother Mary became for me this powerful sister, another Jewish mother who had lost her child. And I felt her help me bear the unbearable, and have turned to her ever since in moments of pain that I didn't think I could carry alone. So I invite everybody to access Mary in that way, that she is so deeply accessible. I think that's why she is the mother of the people all over the world, the mother of liberation, because when people are oppressed and suffering and marginalized, Mary becomes for them this advocate, because she too knew great suffering in her own body.
Well, it's amazing that you've moved through that devastating experience and really turned that also an opportunity for teaching and healing and working with others. And grateful that Mother Mary has been part of that. I think let's also now go to Mary Magdalene, and she's in some ways become very, very, very much the focus in a lot of the new paradigm spirituality movements. There's a whole reclamation of Mary Magdalene going on, but let's get your perspective on why that's so essential for us. I have my own perspective, and I want to love to hear yours about why restoring her to a place of honor is really at the heart of how we evolve the Christian lineage.
Oh, I want to hear yours, Stephen. But okay, I'll talk first if you like. Oh, so much to say about Mary Magdalene. I'm just beginning to uncover the layers. I love this book by Cynthia Bourgeault, The Meaning of Mary Magdalene. And there are many others. Oh, there's this beautiful book of poetry by Marie Howe, a contemporary poet laureate of New York, I believe, that has beautiful poems dedicated to Mary Magdalene. So she is in the zeitgeist, right? She is in the collective consciousness now more than ever. It took long enough. I mean, the early church did their best to just wipe her out of Jesus's closest circle, and yet she is now recognized since the late 1960s, although people don't seem to even know this, as the apostle of the apostles, the primary apostle. Mary Magdalene was a powerful woman, probably wealthy, probably of high social status. And so right there, that's what was threatening to the dudes who gathered around Jesus. And she probably actually financed Jesus and his closest band of disciples and all of the people who followed him. And there were actually a number of wealthy women who supported the gathering around Jesus during his own time. There are lots of controversial conversations about whether or not Jesus and Mary Magdalene were lovers or even married, even had a child. It seems very likely that they were, but that also has been wiped out of history, so we can't know for sure. But the important thing is, to me, is that Mary Magdalene taught by Jesus's side. She was his closest companion, his confidant, his the person who, maybe like Miriam with Moses, helped balance Jesus in his ministry, because he carried such a burden. And not only did she support him, but she also was able to strengthen his heart, and with her own wisdom co-create this community, this wisdom community that gathered around him. She was with him for all the crucial times in his ministry, in his life, in his death. She was the first person to go to his tomb after he died to anoint his body. Remember, he died on a Friday, and the Sabbath in the Jewish tradition is inviolable. So he died around 3:00 on a Friday. By sunset, he had to be buried. And then they could not anoint his body until Sunday morning. And when they went to the tomb, Mary was the first one there to anoint her beloved with his body with sacred oils, and it was gone, and his resurrected form appeared to her and spoke to her and told her to go tell everyone the good news that he now was alive and would live forever and be with them forever, with the people who loved him so deeply, and with all people. And she was the one who proclaimed this message. There are so many things about Mary Magdalene that are beautiful and powerful and controversial. You know, there are these stories about her breaking into the halls of the rich and powerful men when Jesus was sitting among them, and kneeling at his feet, breaking open an alabaster jar of priceless nard, which was this exotic oil, very difficult to come by and truly beyond expensive, and pouring it on his feet, and then drying his feet with her hair. I always loved that story because it shows the ecstatic part of Mary Magdalene, the part of her that didn't give a shit what people thought, the rich and powerful men. She just wanted to be with her beloved, and she did this extravagant, luscious thing. It turns out that story has been actually questioned by feminists in the church, because it relegates Mary Magdalene to the position of repentant prostitute rather than powerful woman and equal rabbi, in a sense, to Jesus. But I don't want to throw that baby out with the bathwater, because that beautiful story of Mary's love for Jesus, and another story, weeping and washing his feet with her tears and drying his feet with her hair. There is something of the mystical, of the ecstatic in that story that I think is well worth connecting to, and not exiling as we reclaim Mary Magdalene as a powerful teacher in her own right.
Beautifully said. I think, and you dropped a suggestion there, which is also mirrors my own understanding, is that the co-equal rabbi, in a way that I don't believe that Jesus could have brought in the Christ energy, quality, embodiment that he did without her sort of providing a kind of complementary half to what he was bringing forward. And he might have been more in the foreground, just as Moses was more in the foreground in certain ways, and at least historically got written that way. But I think that there's a way in which the deepest awakening has to happen through the union of the masculine and feminine, and that is at the heart of how we birth Christ consciousness in ourselves and the world. So I appreciate you sharing that. Well, let's talk a little bit about, one thing we talked about on the page is that this reconnecting with the three Marys is a way for each person to reconnect with their own prophetic voice. And we're so used to seeing prophets as something historical or something that's just a elite few, if you will. But that's really at the heart of claiming our own voice, our own connection with the divine that can express that in words and very directly. So I'd love for you to share a bit more about that.
Yeah, that's the only thing that really matters to me anyway, Stephen, is that direct experience of these spiritual resources, these feminine wisdom beings in this case. I think one of the things about Mary Magdalene that was so threatening to the early church was that she was all about direct experience, the direct experience with the beloved in the form of her beloved Jesus. And so there was an intimacy that Mary had with him that transcended any kind of legalistic uh, status that the early church might have conferred upon her. In fact, when she was written out of history was when the whole hierarchy of the church came into play and fell into place. Didn't fall into place, was put in place by the Romans using a very kind of martial military model. And Mary Magdalene didn't fit in that hierarchy, which was very much a masculine paradigm, a military masculine paradigm, and was about apostolic succession. And Mary didn't have any use for that kind of system and structure. She was about dismantling the structures and dropping down into direct experience of the beloved in the cells of the body. Mary Magdalene was unapologetically sensual, incarnational. It was about experiencing the spirit in the body. And that was the opposite of where the church went, which was disconnecting body and spirit, as if body were some kind of obstacle to spiritual awakening. For Mary Magdalene, and I think for us who look to her as some kind of guide, we're reclaiming the body as sacred ground and the very stuff of spiritual transformation. So for me, all of these wisdom beings, the prophet, the Hebrew prophet Miriam, the courageous mother Mary, who has enough space in her broken, open heart for the pain of the whole world, and the sensual, strong, empowered Mary Magdalene, who is a co-equal rabbi and is completely embodied and connected to the sacred in form. These are all resources for those of us not only who wish to step up as instruments of social change, as spokespeople for our mother, the earth, who is in dire peril, but also just the richness in our own lives. These are difficult times. I suppose all times have been difficult times, and we always think we live in the hardest times of all in some ways, but there's such fractious, divisive times in politics, in particular. And so for me, these women wisdom beings are the source. It's like Miriam's well of fresh water that springs up in the desert, the manna that feeds us. And we can turn to them not only as inspiration to be prophets ourselves, but just for refuge, for sanctuary, for sweetness and goodness. We can tell each other their stories and reflect on them. We can read poetry about them. We can write poetry about them. We can create works of art. These are all going to be things that we'll do in the course. But even if you don't take this course, just know that it doesn't all have to be white-knuckled. I can stand up and be a source of goodness in this world, but also I can receive the goodness. I can rest in the garden that these feminine wisdom beings are, and have sanctuary and restore my thirsty soul.
I love the poetic language. You have such a way with words, and that's because you're steeped in these poetic devotional currents. And it's like, yum. Well, let's. We said we would have you lead a guided meditation to connect with the divine feminine. So we've kind of created a context and some stories, and now it's like we really want to invite everyone who's watching and listening into a journey of activation, healing, deepening that connection with the divine feminine. So why don't you go take us on that journey?
I'd be happy to. So I invite you first to allow your eyes to close, or else at least to just drop your gaze downward and allow yourself to go soft and unfocused, inward turning. And take 3 deep cleansing breaths, allowing yourself to fill completely with breath and hold the inhalation as long as you can, actually. Hold that inhalation before letting it out completely and holding the exhalation as long as you can, hanging out in that empty space between breaths. So 3 deep breaths on your own, inhaling completely, holding, exhaling completely and holding. And with each breath, please do it. Go ahead and do it. This is the portal for the Marys. With each breath, just noticing the full arc of the breath in your body. So as you take these 3 deep breaths, you're enlivening every cell with prana, with breath, with life force. And then just dropping down into the natural rhythm of your breath for these few moments. And allowing yourself to just be fully present in your own body, your own dear body. Picturing now a beautiful sacred space, some landscape that you love. Imagining yourself entering this sacred, beautiful place and sitting down comfortably there. Feeling the presence of this feminine wisdom being close by, approaching, coming nearer. She appears now and sits beside you. She opens her arms and invites you into her embrace. And so, with such comfort and ease, you enter into her embrace, you melt into her arm. The most comforting, enfolding, sensual, delicious embrace you've ever felt. Allow her to hold you now, feeling the comfort, unlike anything you've ever experienced in human form. Rest against her as you've never rested. And whisper to her one burden that you carry on your heart. Tell it to her. Tell her where it hurts, what hurts. And allow her to receive your pain, to take it into her own heart and transmute it into healing. As you offer it to her, you will receive it and integrate it. Like alchemy, that lead will be turned into gold. And now she offers that gold back to you. And you take that golden transmuted substance into your heart, where it radiates through every fiber of your being as a gift that you bring back to the world. Just sit in that alchemical warmth for a moment, enfolded by the feminine, infused with your own golden transmuted pain that is now the source of your greatest wisdom and courage and humor and light. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes and just feel that radiance.
Well, thank you, Mirabai, for such a tender, sweet. I mean, I have tears in the corner of my eyes, just feeling that the sweetness and the self sense of deep surrender and rest and opening. It really is such a different quality of meditative presence that you open up by connecting with the divine feminine. Such a blessing. Well, there's so much that we could share, and you are going to have a chance to share far more in your upcoming program. And I just want to, in a few minutes, we'll talk about that. But anything that you feel like, any key insights from the Marys that you're wanting to bring forward that we haven't gotten to touch upon just yet?
Oh, so many things that I would share. Maybe I'll just share a poem to kind of close this portion, by Muriel Rooksir, from Searching Not Searching, a book written in 1973. Miriam, the Red Sea. High above shores and times, I on the shore forever and ever. Moses, my brother, is crossed over to milk, honey, that holy land, building Jerusalem. I sing forever on the seashore. I remember horsemen and horses, waves of passage poured into war, all poured into journey. My unseen brothers have gone over, chariots, deep seas under. I alone stand here, ankle deep, and I sing until the lands sing to each other. There is a way in which the feminine is intimately, inextricably entwined with the earth, with the land, with the water, with the air, with the peril that the earth is in, and also with the healing that is coming, that we are bringing. It's not too late. From a masculine problem solving, broken fix it perspective, it may look like the environment is too broken to repair. But from the feminine perspective, it is not too late. And our only hope is to reclaim the feminine in our own lives, in the lives of women, in the lives of men, that like each of these Marias, these Marys, we allow the feminine her equal place with the masculine, maybe even for a time, an unequal, more dominant place with the masculine, until the primacy of the earth's wisdom, of the wisdom of the feminine, which is that everything is interconnected, that this web of life, this web of interbeing is what is true, and the feminine has always known it and always will know it, until all beings remember that everything is interconnected and interpenetrated, and it's up to all of us to bring healing to the world, starting with the healing in our own beings. And we don't have to wait. It's not like we have to wait to be some kind of idealized, perfected idea of healed, whole humans before we can activate healing in the world. We're all wounded healers, and the wounded healers are the true healers. So we come as we are. We bring exactly what we are to this table of interbeing. And it doesn't have to be always fraught with solemnity and seriousness and anger and suffering and surus, as we say in Yiddish. It is also a process of healing that involves joy and creativity and art and community and sensuality and sexuality and celebration. This is what
Amen.
the feminine teaches us.
Well, that was a beautiful summary of the medicine that we really need in our time. I thought it was so articulate and so poetic, and I know that people are going to be in for such a blessed journey if they choose to undertake this beautiful soul sanctuary journey with you. So let's spend a little time talking about that now, about how women and some men can take the next step of this journey of rebalancing, awakening the feminine, even putting it in a primary position for a time to be able to reweave ourselves and reweave our world in a more whole pattern. So the program that Mirabai is going to be leading is called Wild Goddesses and Mystics of Mercy, Soul Sanctuary, a refuge for sacred feminine teachings, community, and intimacy with the beloved. So what she just shared is really at the heart of this. This is about a spiritual awakening, a distinctly feminine awakening. It's about a rewiring of your beliefs, a rewiring of your practices, ultimately a reweaving of the fabric of your whole being so that you can celebrate and cherish in all of these sides of yourselves that might have been subtly denigrated, put down, marginalized just by virtue of the culture and the air that we breathe. So you can find this program at goddessesmysticsadvanced.com. Again, there's no ands in there. It's just goddessesmysticsadvanced.com. And it's going to be a really deep journey. It's going to be a 6-month journey. And we've done this very intentionally because there are certain processes of growth and unfolding that require time to unfold. It's not just a quick hit, get some information and then run off and do the practice. No, it's like Mirabai creates a field of grace and support and love that nourishes you at the very foundations of your being in a way that takes time to unfold. So there's going to be profound insights and study of historical mystics and drawing wisdom from some forgotten corners of the mystical landscape. But I think the most important thing is that this is a sanctuary for you to blossom into your full self and to receive sustenance from many of the particularly women mystics who have pioneered this path. So Mirabai, I'd love for you in your own words share about this course, which is going to be a video course. There's the intimacy of the video environment and also with each other that really creates this different kind of sacred community in an online environment. So I'd love for you to share what it is you're most excited to bring to participants in this 6-month journey, and give us a little bit of some highlights from the curriculum as well.
Well, I think you said it, Stephen, that what we want to do is create a really deep refuge for people. I mean, the 7-week courses are such a joy for me. And every single time I just have this desire, and I think many of my students do too, like we're just sparking and we want to go in fully into that fire and explore the prism of all of these women wisdom beings, these feminine wisdom beings. So this is a chance to go deep, to go slow, to enter into the rich vein that underlies all of these great beings. And so we're going to be doing longer meditations, a little bit more contemplative practice, guided contemplative practice. We're going to be reading poetry and sacred texts, not long passages, but shorter passages in both a contemplative way, but also in that tradition of uncovering the treasures that lie at the heart of these rich and yummy sacred texts. As you probably noticed, I have a tendency toward the lyrical. And so I'm not interested in dry scholarship here. What I'm interested in is the devotional passion at the heart of a lot of these beautiful and often hidden scriptures. We'll be looking into some of the more mysterious and lesser known stories about these women wisdom beings. We're going to be doing some art projects that I'm going to be guiding you to be doing on your own and in small groups. The community aspect of this course is one of the most important for me, it's always really at the heart of all of my offerings, whether live or online in this virtual retreat mode, is the way that the people who are with us build community with each other. And so through the community Facebook page primarily, but also through our open question and response time, community gets built in such beautiful ways. So if you're looking for connection with other beings on the path, a path of awakening and service, that's one of the greatest gifts, I think, of this course. I mean, I could go through some of the modules and talk about them if you like.
Well, since we don't have a lot of time, maybe just touch upon some of the ones you're most excited about. And I know you're one great feature of this, you're bringing in some of your favorite other teachers as well to serve as guest teachers in the journey.
Oh my gosh, you guys. Yes. I mean, one of the great gifts of my life, because of what I get to do, writing and speaking about the Dharma, to use the Buddhist term of these teachings, these wisdom teachings, is that I get to meet and become often intimate friends with some great teachers of the Dharma in the world. And so I have Pat McCabe, who is a Diné Navajo woman, speaking about the earth as a living being. I have Nina Rao, who has been with Krishnadas, the great Kirtan Wala that many of you know through yoga classes and other ways. Nina, who has been with Krishnadas all along, is a very powerful teacher and musician in her own right, and a devotee of the divine feminine in the Hindu tradition. She's going to be a guest speaker. Miranda McPherson, who those of you who've been with the shift for a long time already know and love, with her beautifully wild feminine non-dual teachings. And Mona Haydar, who is an up-and-coming, rising star in the world of feminist Islam. She's an American-born Syrian. She's a Syrian-American Muslim young woman, rapper, hip-hop artist, and who is madly in love with God. She'll be one of my guest speakers. Father Bill McNichols, the iconographer priest, who did the book Mother of God, similar to Fire with me, that any of you have taken classes with me before are familiar with, because I wrote prayers to the divine feminine in conjunction with these beautiful icons of Mother Mary. So I have all of these great teachers who are going to be joining me, and so I think that models what it is that we're about, which is not me standing on high dispensing my teachings like alms to the poor people. It's us together creating community, a community of change, a community of healing, a community of joy.
Beautifully, beautifully shared. Well, it's going to be an amazing program. Again, you can see you have more details at goddessesmysticsadvanced.com. I'll share a bit of other dimensions that you can see in more detail on the page. So there's going to be 21 live class sessions with Mirabai, which are 90 minutes long. It includes Q&A, deep community time, a real time to kind of create this new fabric of a soul sanctuary. It's going to be in video, and there you get video recordings of every class. You get audio recordings. There's group time afterwards that you can continue the discussion. There's online Facebook community. You get recordings and transcripts, and we really do everything we can to enhance your learning experience. We also have a number of great bonuses. Mirabai has been very generous with providing extra bonuses to enhance the core value of the curriculum that will take you in this deep process of feminine awakening. So there's Mirabai is going to read from her new book, Wild Mercy, For Your Eyes Only. It's a sneak preview of an unpublished work. Also, we're going to have an audio collection from Mirabai of prayer poems to the divine feminine. You could just taste in that example that we had of her meditation day just what a tender, sweet, evocative opening she can provide through these prayer poems. Also going to be 2 guided meditations called Awakening the Divine Feminine, and an audio dialogue between Mirabai and Tessa Bilecki on Saint Teresa of Avila, one of the focal points of her scholarship, and also like an incredible exemplar for us to to connect with and really understand as this multidimensional mystic. It's also going to be a dialogue with Mirabai and Sister Greta Ronegane, Living Love as Modern Mystics. And as a special bonus, you're going to also receive 2 pre-recorded 60-minute bonus classes from Mirabai called on the Bhagavad Gita and the Sacred Feminine, drawing from the Hindu tradition, and then Hildegard of Bingen and the Greening Power of the Divine. Very powerful. And then I also should draw attention on the page at goddessesmysticsadvanced.com that you get $100 off when you sign up right away. We are doing this for the first through August 14th. So if you sign up today, you'll get, and through August 14th, you will get $100 off this program. So it's a very robust program, a very deep dive. It's really going to create 6 months of soul sanctuary for you to blossom, be exposed to women mystics and teachers you've never heard before, to really draw sustenance for your life and really open to a whole new pattern of being and be able to move forward from that. It's the kind of shifts that will happen in your spiritual life that really will last a lifetime. So the investment is just 6 payments of $179, which you can spread it out, make it easy. Or if you pay in full, you save about 10% at $997. So it's a lot of value and a deep healing, nurturing space for you for a full half year. And we can guarantee that the people who show up for this are going to be of the highest caliber, since Mirabai tends to attract really beautiful, beautiful souls. So again, you can find all the details at goddessesmysticsadvanced.com. Again, that's goddessesmysticsadvanced.com. And when you sign up right away, you get the $100 off. And I forgot to mention that the course begins on August 29th. It's going to run on Wednesdays at 5 Pacific. Even if you can't do the live time, we encourage you to go for it, since you can catch up and participate fully with the recordings and the online community as well, and really still get the full benefit of the participation. So Mirabai, we're at the end of our time, but thank you. What a beautiful, sensuous, devotional, profound time. You always create such a space of deep connection and welcoming of important currents that we haven't always honored. So thank you for that. And anything that you just distill on your heart you want to share with those who are considering joining you for this 6-month journey of Wild Goddesses and Mystics of Mercy.
I just realized as you were talking that exact period of time that this course covers is the period that my new book, Wild Mercy, is going to be moving through the birth canal, and it gets birthed at the end of our time together, April 2nd, I think. And so that just strikes me personally as being very auspicious, that this group of beings gather together, and that I am readying myself also through doing something that I love more than anything, which is to sit together with people and tell these stories and uncover them and explore them. So I'm very much looking forward. It truly feels like sacred time and sacred space to me, and I look forward to sharing it with whoever feels drawn to accompany us.
Beautiful. Well, I know you create such a beautiful sanctuary space, and women and probably some men are going to be very blessed to take this journey with you. So thank you, Mirabai. Thank you all. And I encourage you to go to goddessesmysticsadvanced.com to explore the Wild Goddesses and Mystics of Mercy Soul Sanctuary. Tune in. If you're getting an impulse to do this, there's really no risk. It's a money back guarantee of your satisfaction. So go for it. You get the $100 off when you sign up right away at goddessesmysticsadvanced.com. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for this blessed time together. Thank you, Mirabai, for creating such a sweet, tender space and awakening us to the more of the mystic wisdom transfusion from the Marys of the past and into our present day spirituality.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Blessings be.